suddenly I was slowly leaning backwards over the table, and then I fall down, and then I had this cardiac arrest. It wasn't something to be that was scary in any way. I mean, I felt very, very calm, and I felt like I was coming back, and I felt like it was a deliberate decision.
I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of Soul Inspired. Today, I'm very excited to have Sten Rigedahl on with us. He has had a near-death experience. From what I know, it's fairly newer, so this will be a really interesting conversation. And so I want to say thanks so much, Sten, for coming on today and talking to us.
Thank you very much, Joe, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I start all my episodes like this, and I usually ask if you think about, I believe this was fairly recent or newer that happened to you. If
Right.
I don't know if there's been any changes in your life in regards to who you are or what's going on in your life now, but if you can paint a picture of who you were, what your life was like before your experience.
Yeah, I think it made a massive change in who I am, how I prioritize things, how I see things, how I value things. So it made me even more aware of how precious each and every moment is, and that we never know what's going to happen. And people we meet, we never know. I feel like I know if this is going to be the last time, you never know. And then trying to live accordingly. And then I feel like a lot of things that might have been, we might place more emphasis on, or are not really that important. And also in terms of, yeah, things in terms of like argument and things, it's not really, most things are not really that relevant. And just focusing on more on the things that really has real value
Mhm.
in my life and in others, and focusing more on what we can do while we are here and the impact we can create together with other people and on our own.
So prior to your experience, were you raised in the same kind of belief of what your experience unfolded as? Like, so when you had the experience, did it reflect your belief systems before? Like, were you raised in a religious background, spiritual background? Were you not in any of that? Or like what kind of childhood did you have? Was it similar to most people?
I guess, I mean, it was sort of, my mother was fairly Christian, very much in believing in good in people and be kind to other people and so forth. So I guess that's how she raised us. Um, so that's sort of how I grew up. And then, I mean, I was being very spiritual since fairly early on, and very much interested in different, anything from religion to different spiritual journeys and meditations and all kind of things. And that those kind of discussions and life and what happens when we die and our soul. And yeah, there's so much to dive into, and this sort of a subject has always been very, very fascinating to me.
Okay. So you had some fascination with spirituality even before the experience.
Yes, long, long before.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, that's interesting. I haven't had too
Mhm.
many people say that up to this point. I haven't interviewed too many people, but it's enough that I can kind of start to get a little bit of a feel. So you had some spiritual beliefs before the experience happened. So
Mm.
well, first of all, when did this happen and what led up to it?
Yeah, what happened was in February. I was at an event, business networking event called Heightened Connect, and I was there and received an award. It's called Spirit of the Heightened Connect. And then after I was supposed to, well, I was planning to give a gift to the host. And while I was on my way picking that up, suddenly I was slowly leaning backwards over the table. And then I fall down, and then I had this cardiac arrest. And on this table, I think there were five doctors, and three of them were in cardiology. So it's a lot of truly fascinating um, circumstances of events and how things lined up. And looking through the whole experience, starting from there, it very much feel like it was sort of I don't know, orchestrated at a higher level. That's how I see it. and prior to that, I've gone through a lot of different challenges and also things, and I've sort of gone through and separation and all this kind of thing from longer relationship and things like that, and there's a lot of things happening in my life, and I've gone through a lot of health challenges prior to this. I mean, I've gone through 3 cancer diagnoses and 4 cancer treatments, and it was also phasing out at this point. So it was like, I
Mm.
think this hormone treatment was supposed to finish, I think, 4 days after this event. So it's very interesting how it lined up, and I think also went through a lot of challenges and things um, up to this event, and also a lot of changes in my life, and I was very much the previous year going more and more deep into spirituality,
Mm.
um, and practicing and learning and reflecting and thinking about my life and what I've done up to this point and what I wanted to do, and I had a lot of these things happening up until this sort of moment, and it sort of became maybe a catalyst of some sort
Mm.
for what I would see then is like a next chapter in life, clearly, and also like the second chance,
Yeah.
or yeah,
Yeah.
clear everything from your past, and then moving on to something new and exciting.
So you're going through all these changes in your life. You've kind of gone through
Yes.
health challenges, changes in your life. You were getting to
Mm,
this place of kind of just moving through all that.
mm,
And first of all, it's fascinating that this just was in February of this year.
yes.
So this definitely is the soonest I've spoken with anyone of a near death experience. You find yourself on this day having a cardiac arrest. So you had a heart
Mm,
attack.
yep.
And can you tell us from the moment it happened and kind of explain at the best that you can currently what your
Mm.
experience was like?
Yeah, the thing is a lot of things seems to sort of be blocked out temporarily. I don't think it's maybe a way of to protect oneself from a lot of things. So
Hmm.
for me, I don't remember a lot of things that happened. I've seen things afterwards. I see some video, photos, and I have a conversation with different people to sort of line things up and understand sort of the how events happened. Um, and I know that yeah, I fell down and I were then very quickly having all this CPR, and I think they went on for 50 minutes. I think they usually do 15, but I guess because of a lot of people in the room, and also they did a lot more. There was a lot of very spiritual people and healers in the room as well, and they did a lot of work immediately, and they sort of gathered and did a lot of things and got together and started sending healing and helping with the whole process. And I mean, for some, I know that it was a very, very intense experience. And I had this conversation recently with one of them. Richie told me that usually I feel the presence of angels and things, but this time he saw it. It was very, very clear. Like you could see it visually how they came in and sort of stood around. And that was something he's told me that he sort of a bit struggling with because it was so intense and so real. Um, and then from there, I mean, they were coming ambulances. I think there were 3 ambulances from what I heard, and they did a lot of CPR, and then they did a lot of these defibrillation shocks, and they did 17 of those. I think the normal number is 7, and they usually stop.
Wow.
And then there were a lot of people that sort of kept on pushing for them to um, keep keep working on me, which ended up in me getting these yeah, well then taken to hospital, obviously, which
Hmm.
was like just 6 minutes away. So I mean, all these events around it was very, very fascinating because there was so many things that were sort of lined up for this to be like the optimal scenario for these things to happen. Starting off with the doctors, the many healers in the room, and there was even in one lady, Debbie, who was specializing in clearing airways, and she was also there in the room. So a lot of things happened, and so which ultimately saved my life. And then from there, when I woke up in the hospital, and I was dead for a period of time. And then when I woke up, I was very, very my feeling was I was very conscious of why I had chosen to come down, or sort of to come back into the body, or into back, because I think that I very much feel that was a very, very conscious choice.
Mm.
And I also know that I reflected the pros and cons of um, coming back, and it was very, very, very um, clear to me. And then I went through and asked myself why I wouldn't, and also why I wanted to come back. And there were like three very, very clear reasons I sort of wrote down when I started to get conscious later, 1 or 2 days later.
Okay.
And I was, and one of the things were, I think number one was I felt like I really had to come back for my daughter, because I needed to spend more time with her
Hmm.
here. That was and then the second reason was about love and experience genuine, authentic, deep love, something that's been missing in my life. I felt for a long time. And thirdly, I also wanted to make an impact on the world and do more impact related projects to sort of improve the quality of life for lots and lots of people, and deal with a lot of things. So that sort of became what I realized would be my sort of my new focus in life, and something I should focus much more on. So that was so super, super clear. And also I had this experience that I was very, very, I was like, I was going to call my mom. I was like, I actually going to call her and ask her something. I was like grabbing for my phone. And then I sort of realized that because she felt so present, she felt so, so, so much there. And then I realized eventually that, wait, she's been dead for 10 years.
Mm.
Obviously, I can't call her.
Right.
So on
Right.
this line, so
Yeah.
yeah,
So you had this overwhelmed feeling to give her a call, but somehow she was more present than what you would normally
yeah,
experienced.
much more. She was like she was there.
I can tell, interestingly enough, based on the way you're describing your near-death experience, it's just my own thoughts, how fresh this is, how new it is, because it is. I mean, from the earthly plane, how many months ago was that?
Yeah, this was in February,
This is
so
4 months ago,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because one interesting detail that I get a lot from near-death experiences is that over time, all of a sudden things start coming online that they
Mm,
recall. And so yours is so fresh. It's interesting. So I'm going to dive in a little bit and we'll keep going if
mm,
there's more. But when you said in the beginning, when you had the cardiac arrest and you
mm,
know, you're in that moment, you're telling the story to us all about how there was people giving you CPR and there's people
mm.
around you healing you. Did you know this? Or
No,
what was happening to you at that time? Do you not recall any of that and someone gave you this information?
no, I don't recall anything. I think it's a way of sort of protecting um, oneself for the intensity of that experience. And I think that's something that I will work with, sort of get back to and
Hmm.
understand, because I know there's a lot of I have feelings of what happens, but I don't have visual so to speak of it. But I feel a lot of that I experienced a lot of love, a lot of light, a lot of things, and also that it was very obvious. It was a choice, and it wasn't initially an maybe an obvious one, and that I'm fully, fully aware of. There
Mm.
was something I could choose. And I also know people that have been sort of been or been tell me that they had this discussion, and they had a discussion with them whether I should come back or not, or what they would thought were things like that. So
So
it's quite fascinating.
you intuitively or
Mm,
consciously feel that, but you don't recall a visual of that
No,
currently.
correct.
That's interesting. So you're
Mm,
you wake up. So the way that your life went, just to be clear with the audience, so everyone understands, you're at this event with an
mm.
receiving an award, or I think you said
Yeah,
right.
correct. Yeah,
You
business community award kind of thing. Very special,
um
but yeah,
well, congratulations. I mean, it that was quite an experience you had on the same day, though. So
yeah,
during that moment, you have this event, and from your standpoint, you're there one moment, and the next moment, what, you wake up in the hospital? Is that
yes,
how that's all you recall?
yeah.
Okay. But when you woke in the hospital, you had undeniable
Hmm.
feelings of something that occurred.
Yes. So I
Okay.
felt that I had been somewhere and that I decided to come back. And I felt very, also in terms of death, I feel very unafraid of death. I feel very, it wasn't something to be that was scary in any way. I mean, I felt very, very calm and I felt like I was coming back and I felt like it was a deliberate decision
Hmm.
to do so. I felt like I had a choice to come back or not, and I choose to come back. It was a
Right.
very deliberate choice.
So you had that. So you had the feeling that you had that choice.
Yeah,
You.
very
So
strong.
if I were to say, oh, between 0 and 10, how sure are you that you had a choice?
10.
So 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
how much you felt it. That is
yeah.
interesting. It's just so this is the first time I've spoke with someone where it's all based off feel.
Mm,
I really like that. The
mm,
other thing that you said is you had an instant loss of the fear of death once you
mm,
came back. Is
mm,
that was that a shift? Not that we all walk around with a fear of death, but many of us
mm.
are kind of afraid of what's to come, does it just do we just cease to exist? Was there a change from that from your spiritual beliefs before, almost like a belief into a knowing? Like did you wake up with a knowing that I'm okay if I would have passed?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good way of putting it because I mean, I feel I'm not afraid. I mean, I've experienced death and sort of near death experience, but then also had with my mom, for example, when she died, and my grandma when she died. So I've seen death and been there and had this whole very spiritual experience of sort of when the soul leaves the body and it was a very, very beautiful experience. So that's sort of what I've seen and experienced prior to this. But I do feel that I am sort of more in the knowing that um, I'm not really afraid of death as such. And but it's, I mean, through things I've gone through previously and things, it became very clear to me that you run around when you're younger and you feel like life is everlasting and nobody dies and you don't really. But then I realize more that it becomes more and more that it's not a given, and also feel like after this experience even more so, I feel more gratitude for each day, and also feel more gratitude for people in my life that are very close to me or that means a lot to me um in other way. And also I feel like that it's more important who you choose, who I choose to have around me, the environment I'm in, the people I meet, how I allocate time and energy.
Hmm.
But I really feel that that's so important because we are sort of on a deadline in a way. But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, so I like that because so what you're saying is when you came back, you really came to terms with who to surround yourself with, the energy
yeah,
you want to put out there, the energy you want to be around while your time is here. It is, in a
mm,
way, uh, it's not really a negative thing to say, but it is kind of a short time. It's a bit of a blip. We're just kind of here for a bit, right? So,
yeah,
why not experience it the best way? So, your
mm,
feeling of gratitude towards life and the things you have in life, that
mm.
doesn't have anything to do with being fearful of not being here, right? Like you're not like, oh my goodness, I need to be thankful every day now because I'm scared of where I'm going to go when I die.
No, I'm not scared of where I'm going when I die, and I'm very comfortable at the whole that sort of. I mean, the only thing that I sort of reflect on death is that it would be like if you are in a lot of pain or something. That's the only thing that's would concern me. But other than
Right.
that, I'm good. And also that also feel like it's very much as long as I can be with my. I mean, like my daughter and things like that is very important. But
Mhm.
so that's the main reason. But otherwise, I think like every day is a blessing, and I feel like I'm very grateful to have another day to sort of explore and play this game called life.
Yeah, so but you tend I can even tell by the way you're explaining things
Mm,
that you don't have that this is I've said this, I just said this earlier, but I've seen experiences where people have NDEs and it
mm,
goes dark and they wake up and that's it. They recall
mm,
nothing and they say, I recall
mm,
nothing. Then
mm.
I've talked to people who've had experiences where they feel like they were gone for 150 years and came back and they were
Ah,
dead for 12
yeah,
seconds.
yeah.
And visually they see things and they sensory everything, right? So I've had both sides.
Mm,
And you're kind of here in the middle where you had the experience of
mm.
the non-remembrance right now, although this could come
Yeah,
back to you.
yeah,
Um,
I think so.
right? And I feel like it's going to based on how strongly you feel about the things you're saying. When you came when you came back
Mm.
and you said that you wanted to call your mother,
Yeah,
did which I love that by the way. Did
yeah.
you did it was it because you felt closer as if you had just seen her? Like it was almost like, oh, I want to reconnect with her? Or was it more so that you're kind of in between and you now feel closer to her? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I felt like she was present, that I just felt like he was alive. Uh, and I didn't even, yeah, she was just, I want to ask something about something, and obviously I want to I was call my mom and ask her about it. I can't remember what the thing was, but it felt like, yeah, she's the person to ask about this.
right.
And then I like, no, wait, that's, it's a bit difficult. But then it took me a while. So I was like grabbing for my phone, I was gonna call him. I'm not
And
sure what number, but yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Who knows who would have picked up? But okay, so that's fascinating. So that's your main experience is that you had this heart
Mm.
attack. You don't recall visually seeing anything at all, but you come
No.
back and you have a loss of fear of death. You knew
Mm.
that you made a choice. You said
Yeah.
that you definitely made a choice. How can we dig into that? So how do you know that you made a choice? Was it was just a feeling you had?
Yeah, well, it was a very strong feeling, and I felt like it was something that I was sort of debating and or wondering about. It just felt very strongly that it was a deliberate choice. And I just woke up with that basically. I just felt like, yeah, it's a choice. I'm here and it's a choice. It was very bizarre, very strange, but it felt very much like this is definitely a choice.
Did you know immediately that you were going to be okay?
No, I don't know. I
Okay.
don't
Okay. I
think
wanted to
so.
know if that was one of the feelings. So you didn't know
Yeah.
if you were going to be okay.
No, I don't think so. No, I just felt like I was back and ready for something new.
Did you have any moment of fear that you weren't going to be okay and you could have passed away again?
Question. No, not about fear, but gradually more of again, so reaffirming the value and not feeling like I can't take things as a given and in life and with people and everything. So I think I'd be more aware that life is felt like more there's a limited time, um, but that I had more of it. That was a feeling.
I wanted to take a left turn for a moment and ask you if,
Mhm.
depending if you want to talk about this or not, but
Sure.
you mentioned that you had a spiritual experience around your mother's passing.
Hmm. Yeah.
Is there any way we can dive into that a little bit and what it was that you experienced? Is that something you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah, my mother had leukemia, and so I was in London. I was going back and forth. She was in Sweden hospital, so I was going back and forth quite a lot for about a year until she passed. And then gradually I was moving all the way to the end. I got into this hospice sort of on the like with the bioforest and things. It was very nice. And then I was there, and I was very very early in the morning and the day before as well. And we because I feel like I experienced how her senses gradually faded away. So sight and smell possibly, but then how she sort of disappeared and was. I mean, yeah, she could always hear me. I know. I could feel that she could hear me, and she could sort of squeeze my hand a little bit, and then it gradually sort of um eased off in a way. But I felt we were listening to some music, some sort of spiritual music, for example. I was listening with her, and I felt it was a very very special moment. And then when she then later passed away, I was sitting by her. I think it was 4 a.m. in the morning or thereabout, and I was sitting next to her, and I could really feel how she was waiting for. She sort of chose her moment,
Mm.
and then it was like, no, now she's going, and and others told me as well. I mean, my dad and my sister and some others told me that she must very much have picked that moment and to do have that sort of passing uh on to next life when you were there. And they were like very much that it was like they felt like a very, very deliberate choice of when she wanted to go. She was
Mm.
gonna go, but when she wanted to go, she decided. And I found that very interesting. And it was very, very beautiful. And we had this light, and I was sitting next to her, and so forth. And it was a very, very beautiful experience.
And you knew intuitively yourself when that was happening?
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
I felt we were like waiting, or she was waiting for the moment to go.
Mhm. Yeah, I ask it because, a lot of people will talk about they'll leave the room for a moment and they'll go. I had that happen
Mm.
with my grandmother who was really close to me, or
Yeah.
just different people. Some people don't get the experience of being beside the bed or being with the person when it happens. So I was just curious when you had mentioned it, if you had felt that happening at
Yeah,
the time it was happening.
it was very, very interesting you mentioned that because when my grandmother passed away, I was sitting with my mother next to her bed, and we were there for hours and hours. And I think she felt like she was probably going to. Well, she's been there for a few weeks at the hospital, but then we felt like sort of it was clear that the end was near, it was getting closer, and also the same thing with like should be more and more distance, and there'd be more less presence and more sort of in another space. And then we were like in thinking about dinner time. It's like, yeah, we just have to go and eat something good and have that breakfast or lunch or something. So yes, we just go away just very quickly, maybe 50 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was exactly as you said. She was waiting for that to happen.
Yeah.
So and then we came back, and then she was gone. So the moment she passed, we weren't there, but we was there like probably five
Mm-hmm.
minutes prior to that. So it's
Yeah, it just seems to be a common thing. And I
mm,
think sometimes, it's I always say it's kind of like this morbid way of saying it, but we kind of we're born alone, and
mhm.
some of us probably want to die alone. You look at animals, they kind of tend to just get up and go into somewhere in a corner and they go. It seems
Yeah.
to be like this place where it's a very personal thing. So it's a blessing when you can have that experience with, like you said, with your mom, or where you had that moment with her. So
Yeah.
did this experience you had with the heart attack, with I'm gonna call it an NDE, even though you didn't see anything, it was the feeling. You
No.
had the feeling NDE.
Mm.
Did this give you did it give you any more comfort about losing your mother and your grandmother and people you've lost? Like, did it give you more of a comfort, like, oh, okay, there is something? Like, did you have that at all? Have you had that? I know this is so new. I just haven't know if
Yeah.
you've reflected on that at all.
I feel that they were very present, especially my mom. And I think there were others there as well. I don't know which one, but yeah, maybe my grandma even. But I felt like my mom was very much present, and I feel like I always felt like when they died, they went to a better place, and the one who suffers were we who are so left behind
Hmm.
and miss them. But for especially when you struggle with, I think, um, sickness and pain and all these kind of things. Um, I think it's more or less of a relief. I'm afraid to say, but I think it's a relief for a lot of people to die.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's the hard thing is to leave the people behind and who you leave behind and how you say farewell and all these things. I think that's sort of the painful thing. But for the person who dies, I don't think there is any whatsoever problem in that.
You mentioned earlier on in our discussion that you don't believe you know, this that definitely isn't like a typical NDE like I've talked to where you visually see
Mm.
things and stuff. And you believe some of that has been taken away or isn't, you're not able to recall it right to protect you, to protect things. You said something about protection. Can you elaborate
Yeah,
what you mean by that?
I mean, like I get a feeling because I from also from heard from other people that sort of been around this and been impacted on this. I know that the it's such a powerful and intense experience, and I think that's a way from for the body sort of to protect itself and then gradually feed
Hmm.
that back and sort of connect with that later on. Because I think it's yeah, it's just a way of coping, a sort of a coping mechanism, I think.
That makes sense because there are
Mm.
times too where I've spoke with people who said, they're trying to explain their experience. They can explain it the best way they can in the human mind, but some of
Mm.
it was so explosive. There's no words for certain points.
Mm.
And then you have people who've had these experiences visually, and
Mm.
it's almost like parts of it are cut out. They can't recall some of it, but they recall other
Yeah,
parts of it. And you think, well, why are
yeah,
they not able to see those certain parts? Maybe we can't comprehend those parts. I don't know. We're just
might be,
here.
yeah.
Yeah, so I was wondering. So yeah, this is definitely the first. I'm curious how many people I will talk to over time who will have a near-death experience, come back and have that, just the feelings of everything, the feeling of I made a choice, the feeling
Mm.
of, oh, okay if I die. I don't have that fear of death anymore, but I'm glad I'm back. Um, you had also a feeling, you said, that the choice of coming back for your daughter and to
Mm.
experience love the way that you want to experience love.
Mm.
That could be maybe in a future intimate relationship. It could be
Yeah.
just love for people, but there's something that drove you to come back. And also
Yes.
for your daughter. How long until you felt that about your daughter, like the reasoning for coming back? Was it days after, months after, same day? Like when did you feel that?
From when I more or less became regained consciousness, it was like super, super clear suddenly, and I just wrote it down on sort of a notepad or something
Okay.
on my iPad. I just wrote down that there are three reasons why I'm back and why I'm here.
I ask you that only to because that generally, from what I've seen up to this point,
Mm.
seems to be one of the last conscious thoughts people have before arriving back, right?
Mm.
So they're going through the
Yeah.
experience, they're on the other side, they're seeing their old grandma and grandpa, and they're having a tea party with their Aunt Betty or they're doing
Mm.
whatever.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, there's this thought of, oh, I've got like kids back there, and I've got family, and I've
Mm.
got a future life that I can have. And then
Mm.
whoosh, they just like boom, come right back.
Mm.
And that is one of their last thoughts.
Mm.
So I was curious how quickly you thought about it. And you said the moment you regained consciousness, that was probably one
Mm.
of the first feelings you had.
And also the thing is that not just why I come back, but also the reason why I sort of initially why I shouldn't come back and why. So that was like a debate
Mm.
of some sort. But yeah, that was yeah, like there's no pain and there's just pure love and it's all beautiful and everything. That was like the reason to not come back. But then I felt I had more things to do, and these are like the top three reasons. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm going back.
But you recall a debate.
Yeah,
and
like a
like a debate with
question, like
yourself.
the pros and cons, so to speak.
Wow. That's really interesting. It's
Why I
just
shouldn't
fascinating.
come back and why I should come back. Yeah.
Right. So,
Mm,
so you probably knew the implications of not coming back versus coming back.
mm,
You were able, I'm almost guessing, I'm guessing, right? I don't know,
yeah.
but I'm guessing that you may have even seen that or felt
Mm,
that of what that could do if you weren't on this planet right now, the impact it
mm,
would have, because there's probably things you need to do.
mm.
Interesting. If you could, in your best way possible, explain or what comes to your heart, what comes to your feeling, why do you feel like what do you feel happens once we cross over?
I mean, I feel very much that there is an in-between land between life and death, and that we are in that space to decide whether we should come back or move on.
Mm,
And that's the space I strongly feel that I was in,
okay.
and had to make that decision. And it was up to me to make that decision.
Okay. So right away when we cross, we're in the in between. And in
Mm,
the in between, we know we can come back or go to what's
mm.
coming. And that what's
Yeah.
coming is the real question everyone's always trying to figure out. Even the people who've had intense experiences feel a
Yeah.
lot of times they just get to that threshold. Did you feel have you felt anything different in regards to, say, intuitive gifts or anything? Like, do you have any kind of anything heightened? Does anything feel more heightened than it was before? Or do you feel like the same guy you were before the day?
I feel like I'm much more connected to source, if that's the way to explain it. I feel like I'm closer to that, and I'm also more in tune with my intuition. I'm also much more heart-led, intuition driven.
Hmm.
Um, Listen more to my gut feeling, intuition, and heart. But that's something that's been s sort of step-by-step process over maybe the last year. But I felt like it became much more prominent after, and it just felt like that's the only way to do. And also how you there are a lot of things that changed afterwards as well in terms of connecting with people and what people tell me, what people share. And I mean, how this sort of like professional, like business meeting, or what you want to call it,
Hmm.
but it's a lot of things about life and purpose of life and things that people open up about, all kind of things to me, which I feel is um different
Hmm.
from before. I mean, it happened before, but not at this scale of it, and not this frequently. And it's interesting. I talk about people and they talk about choices they made in life and the purpose, and a lot of conversation comes to into the spiritual world, or into spirituality and reflection of life and purpose and mission, and it's much more prominent now than it's ever been in my life.
So you almost feel more connected to people,
Much more, yeah,
and that's in your work life, family
yeah.
life, all of that.
All kind of interactions, really. I feel it more
Interesting.
and more.
Well, I'm really curious to see what happens over time if anything opens up. You
Yeah.
might be a situation where, you know, I talk to different people and they get intuitive feelings about when they're over there
Mhm.
that they're not meant to keep experiencing these NDEs because the more they experience it, the less they want to be here and they want to be there.
I can
Um,
imagine that. Yeah.
yeah. So
Feel
yours
that
is
much better.
almost, I mean, you had blinders on. You weren't even allowed to see it. So
Might
what?
that probably was a good thing. Yeah, I mean, I think that maybe if you know too much, you sort of. But I think that there are things left to do, regardless. And then, but it's only positive in terms of light and love, and it's yeah, the feeling is very positive. So which make the yeah. So the initial reaction is to continue. And the second reaction is, no, why would I stay? And then focusing on those things. And then letting those three reasons be the sort of decision maker of it. Because I think the easiest way would be to stay. The easiest way would be to continue, I
Mhm.
think. But yeah, I can't leave my daughter.
Right. So you think the hard decision was coming back. That was the harder decision. That's what you
I
intuitively feel.
think so, but not, but it's easy when I think about my daughter
Right.
and the rest of
Of
it and things
course.
I want to experience. Basically, things I want to experience, the things I want to do in this lifetime that I have not yet
Mm.
experienced fully, perhaps, or not yet done, and things that are sort of in motion that I want to seek complete.
Do you feel like this moment in your life when this happened, it was divine in the regards to, did you feel like you needed a wake up call, or was there, can you pinpoint a reason why this would have happened to you at the time it did?
I think it was a good wake-up call to some extent. I think to be more clear about what to focus on. I think even more. I think it gave me a lot more clarity. I
Mm.
feel and lot more um, reduction of noise and things like that and distractions in a way. So accentuated sort of the importance of who you surround yourself with and what you do with your time and your energy and everything.
The reduction of noise.
Mm.
I'm writing that down just because I really like that, because I think a lot of us get to that point. And we look at you, you considered yourself a spiritual person to a point before it even happened.
Yeah.
And you still had this incident happen to wake you up a little more, to reduce the noise around you and appreciate the things around you. So,
Mm.
you know, one of the beautiful things about people like you that are sharing your experience is the impact or influence it can have on people. And I say that because, you know, I don't think all of us want to have NDEs. I think it would be much easier to just experience the DE when it's time, to have that
Yeah.
death experience when it's time for us to go and to live our lives the best we can. I'm not saying it's
Yeah.
a bad thing to have NDEs, but I wouldn't encourage it for people, live your life
No.
experience. And just saying the things you're saying, it might trigger, I mean, it triggers me, reduce the noise around you and remember why you're here.
Yeah. Focus on what's important, and then also asking oneself more often, like, is this really important, and or isn't, or is it in line with what I'm supposed to do, and or is it a distraction?
Do you have any type of meditation practice or anything where you try to calm your mind, or do you anything like that at now, or is it still difficult to do with a busy life?
No, I think it's very important. I meditate probably every day, at least, yeah, once every day.
Oh, you do? How long do you meditate for?
I used to do this more extreme version, but now I do more like maybe 15 minutes or so
Mm-hmm. Just
to
15.
get it in the morning ideally, and then it could be like just listen to sounds or nature or even silence or sometimes guided meditation. I do, yeah, a lot of things with sound is very good.
You said 15 minutes?
Yeah, 15, 1 5,
1 5, yeah, okay. And I mean that can show you
thereabout.
that can all, if you do it daily and it's a practice, it's like eating,
Yeah,
right? It's like, and
yeah.
I'm I'm always saying this to all my guests. They all tell me, Joe, you need to meditate. You need to get, because I'm a musician, right? So I use my music as my
Yes, yeah.
meditation, but I do think there's a little bit of a difference. One of them, it's a different kind of energy. I have a student that I coach currently who does a lot of chanting. And when I
Mm,
get into this chanting mode, which is a very slow kind of sound that you go through, I almost feel so overwhelmingly relaxed because I'm a very busy person. And I'm
yeah,
like, okay, that tells me right there I need to slow down a bit, because that's probably the only time I've been able to get into that space. So I'm working with
yeah,
that, and I'm going to work with meditation. So I encourage all my listeners to find some type of meditation, whether that's a morning walk where you can calm your
yeah.
mind, or you just sit in a closed room or a room and listen to noise, listen to sounds, listen to music. I think it's really important. So
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think when you play music and things, do you feel like you get in some kind of meditative state sometimes, or when you create music, or
I've had my whole life where when I write, I don't know where it comes from. It's one of the reasons why I didn't. know how to go towards the industry because it didn't feel right to me. I didn't want to get to a situation where I was just doing music I was told to do.
Mm,
I needed something that was natural for me. So as I get
mm,
really going, I always had the ability of freestyling. So I start playing a couple chords or piano
mm.
or guitar, and it starts to just come out. And I've written
Well,
4 albums, and all 4 of those albums 95% of the percent of those songs are based off that. They come from somewhere that I can't explain. So
yeah,
it does put me in a meditative state for sure.
that's amazing. I
Yeah.
love it. It's very, I mean, I was very much into to listen to music and like Prince especially for a long period of time and you see how people they sort of you can see how him from he sort of transformed he was playing. He suddenly was switched on to something else and he was like connected to spirituality and energy and it's just flowing through. And I feel like he was leaving.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
no,
very
it's
powerful.
definitely a place I've always felt connected.
Mm,
And I when I'm in a good place, that's when I'm
mm,
writing. And when I'm in a not in a great place and I'm not
mm,
writing correctly, I always have to try to bring myself back to that because that is my form of meditation. But I'm also learning to calm my mind even more down to find a space of stillness. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with doing nothing for a
mm.
moment, right? I mean,
No,
I mean,
absolutely.
even based on the work you said you work in business and things, it can be a very busy life. Life is so
Yeah.
busy, and then you got family life and you got everything going on, and
Mm.
that noise, that constant, there's got to be a point where we calm down. It doesn't mean we're lazy. It
No.
means we're calming ourselves down into a place that we need to come down to. And I'm preaching it to myself right now because it needs
Yeah.
to continue to get better. So yeah.
No, I very much feel that, and I feel like more and more also after this, I feel like I there is like a limited amount of energy that I that you have each day and where you direct it and who you direct it with, and I feel like I'm very when you're very present, which is I guess a little bit what you're talking about is about being present in the moment, and when we are like fully and completely present in the moment, it takes a bit of energy and I feel like it's more sensitive for things and sensitive for noise and sensitive for all kind of distractions. But being more and more present, I think that's really the meditation, isn't it? It's about if you're really present in the moment or you're walking, you're very conscious, you feel your body, you feel your breathing and everything, then that's perfect meditation, isn't it? You just doesn't have doesn't have to be complicated, just being in the moment and feeling and being there. Same as when we meet other people and we switch off the phone and we just be there and we just have eye contact and are there fully present and just listen. It's very beautiful.
One of the last questions that I ask everybody when they're on the show is it's a simple one, but it's I try to get people to come from a place where it's just a natural answer. It's not even from
Mm.
thought. And it's the first thing that comes to you, why are we here? Why do we come here and incarnate?
I think I believe in sort of this divine design things. I think that everyone has a purpose, everyone has a role to play. There's something we need to do. And one of the main things is to figure that out, um, what that is and why we're here and what we're supposed to do. I think that's very important. And then that's yeah. And also I think that the purpose of life is to live a life of purpose. I think that's
Mm,
very beautiful saying, I think.
right. Purpose of life is to live a life of purpose. So I do like how you just mentioned though that we likely come here with a set purpose
Mm,
and but we come in completely with no thought of who we actually are at our deep core. We forget who
mm.
we are and we have to
Yes.
remember that over time, right? So that's great.
Yeah. I very much think that we have a purpose initially and then we have to figure that out again.
Yeah.
So it's not as easy as it could be, but it's that's sort of part of the I guess the life lessons and stuff like that.
I love that. I love how authentic you've been with me today and explaining how your experience affected you. If more comes to you, stay in touch. If
Absolutely. Yeah. I think
if
I think it will.
Yeah, if more things unfold, let us know, because I'm sure the audience would love to hear more if anything came back to you. Speaking about that, I usually turn to the camera and say, thank you everybody who's been following the Soul Inspired and following the journey of these inspiring stories. And please like, share, and subscribe. I've been really happy and fortunate to have Sten on today. So thank you so much, Sten, for coming on and sharing your personal experience with everybody.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure. It's been a pleasure talking with you today.
So